Welcome to the Vegas Programmers Monthly Meetup. So, the Vegas Programmers Meetup was originally started because there was a lack of community, really. This was 10 years ago, right? So, can you take the conversation outside? I'm sorry. So, over the last 10 years, I've been running the Programmers Meetup with one goal and one goal only, which is to share knowledge for free, right? So Cody here has been with the group, 5 years, 10, I don't know. He goes way back, right? I love this group because I've been able to build a career based off of networking with people, meeting people, finding jobs from this, right? So that's why I keep it going. Students, even people wanting to get into programming, that's why we're here. Today, we have a very cool topic. We lightly touched on it maybe like 3 months ago, but this month, I know, Cody, you've been like heads down in AI stuff for past 6 months, you'd say?
About a year. A
year? Okay. So, Cody here has already had a lot more experience than I have with programming with AI, right? There's a lot of, oh my gosh, is it going to take our jobs and all that? Probably not anytime soon. And what I can say is all it's going to do is boost your productivity, which is what I feel. Helps me catch mistakes. Sometimes it makes mistakes. That's why it's not going to take over jobs anytime soon, is it does hallucinate every now and then. But all in all, it is a great productivity boost. And today, is it called Llama? What was it called? Are you talking about that, or is it a different one?
We'll talk about a few technologies.
But few different ones? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
A lot of them named Llama.
Are you cool with people asking questions during,
Yes.
Okay. So it's a little bright over here. We may not see your hand. So if you're holding it up and, maybe just yell hello, or I don't know. I'll try and look out for you guys. Yeah, so I guess without further ado, Cody Moss is going to be speaking about his experience. And at the end, I unfortunately don't have slides, but I'll be sharing my experience with what I've been doing over the past few years with ChatGPT and stuff like that as well. So thank you, Cody.
Cool. Thank you, Josh, for the introduction. Yeah, hello everyone. So my topic today is everyday programming with AI. So just to kind of start the story is when I first started hearing about ChatGPT and AI and how it's going to take our jobs, I rolled my eyes a lot. I'm not going to lie. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. This thing, it'll probably write READMEs and other various things. That's cool, but it's never going to do my job. And from there, I kind of was just trying to stay away from it as much as possible, just because I felt it was also going to make me a weaker programmer, because I was going to be using a tool that might generate code that then I would have to end up fixing anyway, so it's going to slow me down. Well, about a year ago at my company, I work for a company that's owned by Microsoft, or we're actually owned by Xbox, that is then owned by Microsoft. And Microsoft had this big push and said, how can you utilize AI to make your job faster, or optimize your job, or do other various things? They just wanted to know, how can you take AI and just start using it? So they gave us access to a bunch of tools that were internal only. And on top of it, they also gave us GitHub Copilot. So GitHub Copilot, for those who aren't familiar in the room, it's a product by GitHub that is trained on all the code that was available on GitHub. I believe it was only the public code. There's some fuzziness there about where they actually got their data, but it's built on top of ChatGPT. So it makes it so that you could go into this prompt and you could type in hey, how can I do this thing in Golang? Or for example, how can I make a web request and stuff like that. And I actually found myself as I started trying to utilize this tool, I became more and more enthralled with the idea of what it can do. Because I'm not sure how many people here have this problem, but you like go in and you hit Command N or Control N, whatever it is, and you have that new file. But for some reason, a blank file just like stops you in your tracks. Like you instantly lose track of thought and start struggling to fill in the blank. Even though we all, most of us here know how to program and probably have been doing it for years. Those of you that haven't, well, you'll come along to this eventually. So I should know what goes in that blank file. But I figured out that with apparently my screensaver popping on, that AI can actually help with this, because I could actually just be like, hey, here's my rough idea that I want you to generate. And it'll just generate it, and then I can go on fixing it from there. Problems that used to take me like probably a couple hours now take me 10 to 20 minutes. I did not think that AI was going to bring me to this level of optimization until my own employer was like, well, we're forcing you to use this thing. So then I wanted it on like my local device. Now we're going to actually start going through the slides. So this is like the part where I was like, how do I actually run an AI chatbot on my MacBook or on a server that I could spin up in a cloud or something, right? And then that's when like I started figuring out that AI is apparently going crazy. I was trying to piece together it all. I was stuck between like OpenAI and ChatGPT, but the problem is I'm sending like third-party information, or I'm sending my data to a third party, and also I don't know how their model was trained or anything like that, and there's a lot of problems there, right? It's kind of hard to convince somebody that, hey, just go pay for this thing and use it, because it's going to be great. Because like the other biggest hurdle I had is I also didn't want to pay for any of this. Because, it's one thing to like, when I have a prototype and I want to get it up in the cloud and start having users, yeah, sure, I'll pay for it then. But how do I get like that 10-step start process? Well, the answer I thought was Hugging Face, which is a bunch of open source models. You can go into them, you can see what data they're trained on and whatnot usually. And you can also see like their white papers and all this other stuff. But nobody tells you how to run the models. Like Hugging Face actually has like its own thing where you could be like, well, hey, I want you to run this model. But now you're paying Hugging Face to run a model for you. And again, I was like, how do I get this so I can run it? And then we already talked about GitHub Copilot. I started diving more into that, wondering because GitHub likes to open source a lot of their stuff. And I was like, well, do they have like an open source version of Copilot? The answer is no. It's too valuable. They're never going to sell that. Or they're never going to make it open source. So I had to dive deeper. I had to figure out first, what is a model? Well, that's what LLMs are. They're large language models. They're trained up on a boatload of data, and then from there you can talk to it, right? But it's usually a lot of the data, like ChatGPT. I don't know when they keep theirs, but like when it comes to when you talk to like Bing's Copilot or other ones, they'll tell you that they were trained on data from 2022. Well, that's not relevant to today. So like something I might ask it for Golang or for Python or something else, it's going to be from 2 years ago. Like what was the best practices and stuff that it read about 2 years ago? Well, how do I get it more up to date? Well, Meta, they actually have like this really cool project called Llama, and they're not up to date themselves, but I've been noticing that their model, since it's another one of those open source ones, it's under their new LLM license called like Llama license or something like that. They're really sticking to the theme. And they actually have like Code Llama, and when you track that, you can see that there's changes happening to it all the time. So it is still getting better. But still, how do I get it to know today's problems? How do I get it to know today's, how do I get it to know my source code? How do I get it to know all that? Well, the answer is RAG. It's called a retrieval augmented generation. So I don't quite understand the science behind it, I know of tools that allow me to do this thing where I don't actually have to be that PhD that's working on this stuff all day. And so I'm able to upload the files into a way that it vectorizes it and shares it to the model. And then when I share it to the model, when I ask those questions, it will be relevant to my use case and to my source code as it is now. And then there's also web-based solutions. That's like Hugging Face and Bing Copilot and ChatGPT and all those. They all can tie into RAG as well, and they are also LLMs. Okay, so how do I get this thing up and running locally? This was probably the hardest task, but some dude, I forgot his name. I'm trying to locate the article in my history. If I do, I will make sure to link it in the Meetups comments. But he wrote a dev.to guide on how to get an AI model running on your system. And I can't thank him enough. So the answer is, there's this really cool product called Ollama. It's an open source product, and it basically turns LLMs into Docker containers. Like, it has like all the same things. Like in the command line, it could be like Ollama run, Ollama pull, Ollama push, and you can set up like your own models by telling it like you can create a model file and like fill in what you want like your starting prompt to be, so that way you can kind of pre-train up the chat history. And you could do all of that from this one tool, but it's all CLI based. And then I was like, well, how do I get this into another tool? Well, there's this other tool called Anything LLM. Don't worry, I've actually got demos. Like, I'm not just gonna like spout a bunch of information at you. I'm gonna show you some working demos and stuff here. We gotta get some precursor out of the way. So Anything LLM, when I started trying to get up and running, it could already detect that Ollama was there. So I just selected Ollama, put in my token count, and it was like, hey, this thing's running on localhost 11 something. I forget what the default port is, because when you run Ollama, it actually spins up a web server that's listening on a port. I believe it's only stuck to localhost. Haven't quite checked it out. I just know that like I don't let it through my firewall, so it's not like anyone in this room could contact my MacBook to try to get to it. And then the biggest hurdle, how do I get GitHub Copilot, but at home and without buying it and all this other stuff, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. If you are happy with spending money with Copilot, go for it, because it is actually a very nice product. But I'm a bit of a cheapskate. And I found a way using this really fun VS Code extension called CodeGPT. And CodeGPT also has extensions for like JetBrains and I believe a couple of other IDEs. I know a buddy of mine said he got it working in NeoVim. So if you're into Vim, you can get you could get CodeGPT probably to run in it. And another thing is, like I said earlier, the problem is with like CodeGPT, or I mean not Code, but ChatGPT and all these other LLMs is, well, you're shipping off this data to a third party. And I also like a bit of privacy, so the answer is just run it locally. And come on. Thank you. Now we're going to get to the live examples. Now, bear with me, the screen is a little weird, so if you can't quite see it, please feel free to shout out and I'll try to enhance or do something to make it bigger. But the first tool we're going to cover is, is this, this is Ollama. You can find it at ollama.com. And the thing is you could just kind of, can everyone see that all right? Cool. So I already have it running. I already have it installed. It's right there. It gives you a little icon on Mac, and then you click it, and it spins up, and then it runs in your taskbar like this. The only real option is to quit it. But in this case, I could say Ollama run Llama 3. Yeah, we'll just go with latest, so that's fine.
Is that the model or the?
Yeah.
Llama 3.
Llama 3 is which model it's going to download and pull. So in this case, now I have a CLI chatbot, so I could just say,
Who made the Llama 3 model?
Meta.
Oh.
Yeah, you can see a list of, so it runs Llama 3, Minstrel, Gemma, but they also have like here, there's a lot of models it can run.
Each one has like a purpose.
Yeah, usually, or a lot of them are just like basically clones of each other, all trying to compete against ChatGPT. So I'm not exactly sure what to ask other than like, what's the meaning of life? And you can see it starts spitting out a bunch of chat. Now, if I let this keep running through, my MacBook does get a little warm because this is like running here. And we'll just kill it there. Because that, that's all cool and whatnot. Which is?
Is this running? When you ask it anything, is it pinging something like Llama, or is it running on your machine?
It downloads it, so
like when you said Llama 3, run Llama 3, did you already have? Do you already have the Llama 3s? Because they Facebook like creates the tokenization file. What?
With like the font size version.
Yeah, exactly. And then I thought it was like 140 gigs, but I guess they have versions of it.
yeah. So that's one of the neat parts here. So Ollama is focusing on trying to be a little, they're trying to be real friendly. In this case, they have tags for 8 billion and 70 billion. What you're going to probably end up running in the cloud, and boy, howdy, is it going to be expensive if you ever do, is that 70 billion one. I can't run that because I do not have enough memory here. Because it's based off of like memory. It's like usually for every billion you need about a gig of memory. That's usually the rule of thumb I've been seeing online.
It's the number of parameters, basically. And
Yeah.
Meta's just made a few different ones.
In this case, I downloaded, this is the Llama 3 latest. That's the one we just tried to run, we did run, and it's about 4.7 gigs. It was updated about 8 weeks ago. And so when
You would already have that downloaded, because you ran it and it ran in like 10 seconds, so it obviously didn't download 5 gigs.
Yeah, it's downloaded here locally. You can see where I also have Code Llama. I did have a long list, but I decided for the talk I should probably clean up the ones that I'm not using at the time, because this tool is great because you can just kind of download a model, just kind of chat with it for a bit and see what it comes up with. But like the downside to the CLI is I discovered that it's kind of difficult to do that RAG operation, trying to get it so that it has like the latest information and stuff like that. So now we're going to go on to, this is a tool called Anything LLM, and it still is a little hard to see, so we're going to just lift this up. There we go, there's the bottom of the screen. So here you could set up what's called workspaces over here on the left. I'm going to just set up a demo one. So when you first spin up this application, it's going to ask you a bunch of questions, and like most of the defaults are fine, but when it gets to the model section, make sure that's where you're like picking Ollama. It'll kind of look like this. If I go to LLM preferences, it looks like this screen here, and there we go. There's a 11434 number, and it's on 127.0.1, and you could set which model selection and what your token context window is. I went with all the defaults Ollama suggested, but you do have to type that information in. So in this case, I now have this workspace. And just to kind of give a demonstration, by the way, folks, if anything goes awry today, that's just AI for you. It's not right 100% of the time. Hell, it's not even right 80% of the time. But it gets most things right enough to be useful.
Live demos in general, right?
Yes.
60% of the time, it's right 100% of the time.
Thank you. So here we're going to go ahead and say like, what is GSH, or what does GSH stand for? By the way, for those, because I realize we have a lot of new faces here today, I wrote an application called GSH. It stands for Gopher Shell. It's supposed to be a play on Dancer Shell because I was trying to make like a more updated version with Golang. And in this case, it says it stands for whatever that is. So we're going to reset this.
Wait, are you linking it to your GitHub or something where it would know?
Not yet, but that's part of the demo. So now I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to this upload, and in this case I got to go find the file again because for some reason my cache version went away. Oh, fun.
So this is you training it on your data?
Yep. Doing it live. Oh, wrong button, and now I need this one and this one, thank you. Here's just my README, and I'm going to upload that. Okay. So in this case, I see that it uploaded into anything LLM. That still doesn't make it part of my model. So I have to move it into my workspace and then click this Save and Embed. Now in this case, it now knows about this README. So now I could say, based on the README file I uploaded, what does GSH stand for? Very simple question, but because like that's usually like the thing you would see right at the top. But I have done this on much bigger like documentation. Like when I was like struggling learning a new technology, I kind of just went to their GitHub, found all the markdown files, downloaded them all, threw them all in, and kind of started asking it questions like, how can I do this? How can I do that? And it got it, because like when you supplement the data, a lot of the hallucinations disappear. So in this case, you could say, I pointed it at the README because I really wanted the demo to go well, but last night when I was testing it, it even just kind of figured it out, was like, oh, you want it from this file. Because it usually prioritizes the data you upload to it versus what it was trained on. But it says, according to the README file, GSH stands for Gopher Shell, which that's exactly what we were trying to aim for. Now, you could spin up as many threads as you want in this, because let's say I didn't want to lose this chat history. I could like spin up another thread and ask it other stuff and go, using GSH, how can I add more workers to the process?
And is anything in LLM a desktop app or a website? Or
It's a desktop application, so again, this is running entirely locally. So in this case, it looked at my README, it said like according to the provided context, it found that the command takes a -w flag. And again, it learned that right now just based totally off of my application, because believe me, I am nowhere near big enough with this application for it to have been trained on it, even though I did write the application like 2 or 3 years ago.
Just one quick question.
Yes.
In the CLI, in the Ollama CLI, will it allow us to write a function, like an unknown function, and call it trigger? For instance, let's just assume that I'm running a manufacturing unit, and then I'm running the function to call the inventory of a manufacturing unit. Will it allow to do the inventory process in time, like in real time? Will it allow us to write that code as a function?
Write and then execute a Python file?
Exactly. Will it do that? So either Python or even PHP for that matter. So will it allow us to get that function in the CLI? Have you tried that?
Oh, so anything LLM is hitting it based off of this domain here, which is just my localhost. If you put Ollama, because you can run, Ollama actually has like a Docker container, you can run it, and you can tell it like, hey, I want you to preemptively download like these models. And you can even like package it where like that's like one of your steps is it to like down, but man, that would be a massive container image. you can hit the old Llama API to do like ChatGPT style functionality. I don't know about functions and hooks and stuff like that, but I know like if you like write up like a programming application, you can have it contact GPT or Ollama and like have it like you give it a prompt. And there's actually also ways, like I forget what the API looks like. I'm still like diving into that part, but like the API allows you to like add things to it. So I believe there might be a functions part, because I believe they were trying to mimic the ChatGPT API, which does allow you to inject functions into it.
So even when you're in that terminal, you're in like a container. You don't have the virtual environment where you have like your Python language and different libraries. So you can't execute it, but you can build what you just said as functions. Okay, that's called functions. I had a question. Have you ever used LM Studio? And what do you think the trade-offs are between that?
I have started dabbling with LM Studio, but in this case I was mostly focusing like how to like get it into like, I'm mostly like taking you through the steps I did to try to get it to the point to where I could code with it in my IDE, which is kind of more of like what it was I was trying to achieve. So LM Studio still being like a third-party application, I found anything LLM first, so that's what I kind of went with to learn. LM Studio, from what I've seen from like the 10-second glance I gave it, is it looks like a great tool. It just wasn't what I found first, and it wasn't like my end goal to get to.
This is great, but I think you're going to show us now how you can use this in a GitHub extension, and you might need that Ollama kind of bridge. I don't know.
Yeah, because like we've shown anything LLM and how to add data to your model, but like the other neat part is when you get it into your IDE. So in this case, I already have like this extension called Code GPT here. It's already chatted. For some reason it lost my model, so we'll just go ahead and add this back in. And we will go ahead and try the Code Llama latest, or no, we won't do latest. We'll just do 7 billion. That way it'll stick to the one that I already have downloaded, just in case there was a new one. So in this case, like, you know, I could, just to kind of show that you can still talk to it. I know it's kind of hard to read here in the bottom, so I'll just read out what it is I'm typing, but I'm saying using Golang, how can I make a web request to Google while adding a header of X foo set to bar? I had to really blow this up for it to be seen, so this might be a little hard. I'll paste the code over in the right so that way people can see it, because it actually will like write out the code, but then it also will like type out why it put each line of code and why. Or sometimes it won't. Yes. It's like to make a web request with the header of xfoo set to bar and Go, you can use HTTP new request function and add a header using header set method. So in this case, I guess we will go ahead and just kind of copy this. Actually, wait, I remember they just added this functionality, I believe, or no, it's gone. Because like, what do you call it? They usually make it so that there's like a little copy button, but I think with it blown up so much, the bit here is rough. So we're gonna go with google.go. So in this case, I could see that it put it in package main and gave me a bunch of imports, and then it did func main. Why is that? Main declared in this block. We'll figure out what that means later. But I know from what I actually really wanted was just this, because chances are great I probably would have just copy and pasted this section here. and then produce that out. Oh, it's because I'm already in my project, so we can ignore that. And if I just here and then do go run google.go, we got 429. So it actually did make a web request. So it did get it right that time. But this is a very simple ask. It's when you start getting more complex with your prompt that you're going to see it where it's going to start hallucinating a bit, and it's going to start trying to like guess what your intention was. But in this case, like this is stuff that's been documented for a long time. The API hasn't changed really. So it just set it up a new request and whatnot, and then it prints out this status code. If I really wanted, I could get it to print the body. But like here's like the other cool part that's about it is you can kind of like, let's say you didn't know what a line did. So I can highlight this line, I can right click it, and then down here that you can't see, damn it, and I can't move my context menu, there is a Code GPT explain, Code GPT refactor, document, find problems, and unit test. These parts are like, in this case, I was going to show off the explain, and then I hit enter, so that way it explains it. Because it already injects it doing like the same RAG method that we were talking about, and it's going to sit here and it's going to explain what that line of code is doing. And this can be really useful if you come across like a really complex line and like maybe you aren't sure like how the groupings are happening and stuff like that, because it'll actually break it down step by step. But the other neat part is when like you kind of just highlight this whole function. Technically you don't have to highlight the function, and I don't know why my dictionary decided to open like that. We'll just do like this. If I highlight this, I can right click it and then say unit test this and then hit enter. It's probably going to tell me that it's not unit testable because it can't inject the client. Yeah, I just thought about that. This is a bad example. We'll go ahead and stop that. We'll just save it. And now we'll come back here. We'll get rid of this. Delete this. Go back to this main. Find a function that we actually can unit test. That would be pretty good. Console command. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do. Oh, right, because I moved a lot of this around. Yeah, here we go. Execute worker. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say Code GPT unit test, tell it to go. Because when you right click it, it just puts it all into the prompt. You still have to press the enter button. And it's now figuring it out. At least I hope it is.
Does it eat up a lot of batteries doing this type of stuff, I imagine?
It can. I don't know what it did. I think it gave up.
Could we create a new prompt and do like a
Yeah.
sub-function?
We'll go ahead and do that, and then like you said, new gopher pool. Yeah, maybe we'll do the new gopher pool because this is a very easy testable. Unit test that, and then da-da. Here we go. Yep.
If you were to say how often this might happen where you have to run it in a new tab or something like that, like X out of 10 times maybe? Because it could be worth it if it's like 7 out of 10 times it might do this, but 7 times is okay for me.
I will say I do tend, like, I noticed that this new chat button is right there up at the top. It's real easy to click. If you're switching context, like in this case, I think we had to do a new chat because first I was asking it to explain a line of code, and then I went and instantly was like, now I want you to unit test this thing that has nothing to do with that line of code I just asked you about. And that probably confused it. So the fact is I was context switching. I probably should have told it to reset the context.
You reset the context first.
Yeah.
Is that what you do with the slash reset on code llama?
Yeah, when you slash reset, it just resets that thread so that it forgets all the things that are before that in anything LLM. In this case, we have just this fancy button right here that says new chat.
How many new chats can I have at one time?
In Code GPT, it's only the one. I don't know about the Pro version,
Okay.
but if you were going to pay for the Pro version, I might evaluate it against GitHub Copilot, see what the pricing is.
Like, would you find it valuable if I had multiple? Because if I didn't want to switch the context window and I just wanted to grow it for like the lifetime of a project, could I just have one for unit testing, one for explanation, you know? And like, do you see like, oh, that would be useful or not really?
I do see how that could be useful. I'm trying to see if I could do that. No, it looks like I lost my chat just by doing that. In this case, though, you can see down here, it's very hard to see, but it is injecting like my main.go at certain lines.
Yeah, 28 right now.
Mm-hmm. And you can also tell it to import a selection. So you don't have to right click either. You can just do that and then click this and it'll fill it in. Yeah, Code GPT is one of those things I use only on my personal projects. When I'm at work, it's definitely GitHub Copilot, mostly because we have access to it. Which one do I find better? GitHub Copilot, I find the user interface is more user-friendly, but I find the open source models to be more complete. So there's evaluation to be had there if you want.
Can you switch out your models on GitHub Copilot?
No, it is stuck to the one that I know of.
Is there an open source version?
No, not that I found. That's why I found Code GPT, because Code GPT, their VS Code extension is open source. I don't know about their other extensions because they do offer a paid product, so I don't know which is their API. But I don't use it because you can see if I come here and click this, there's Code GPT Plus, whatever the hell that means. But I like my local model, so I just tell Ollama and then I tell it some model name. In this case, it figures out what models I have available and what's available to it. But, so I just picked that. And then the difference between Code Llama and Llama 3, Code Llama was just trained up on code alongside, but it was based off Llama 2. Llama 3, from my understanding, I have started playing with it. It has produced roughly the same results. Take that with what you will.
Question.
Yes.
Can you save let's say I want to learn Svelte, and I plug in all the documentation in Svelte, and I train this thing. Can I save that for future use, like on a different machine or something like that? Is it just like a Docker image that you put up, or is it like a model file or something?
That is a good point. I never checked. I'm verifying now. It appears... Oh, there is this share button. Oh, no, that's the upload button. Never mind. I don't know, because I only have ever worked on this one machine.
Yeah, it's a GPT. No, but... okay.
But anything you have trained up in this workspace, like if you have that... So that's like another thing. If you've downloaded that documentation, like it's not hard to copy that like onto a USB stick, put on another machine, and just throw it back into anything. Yeah. Because like the thing is if we look through this, the biggest pain point you're probably going to feel is the fact is it does have a vector database, and that's actually so like. Take this with a giant grain of salt, because I'm only going based off shit I've read. Is the way RAG works is you have what's called an embed model, your actual chat model, and then a vector database. And what you do is like you tell the embed model, hey, I want to embed this information and you're feeding it like whatever file type it is, and that's what breaks it up into vectors and then stores it into the vector database. And then when you ask a question, like you put the embed model into a query state, it's going to take your question and it's going to go see, like, so when you query it, it's going to actually go through the embed model first, and it's going to try to see which vector data in your vector database makes sense for your query, pulls it out of the vector database, bundles it with your message, and then sends that to the model to then be processed. So like that's like I believe the big pain point here is the fact is like your data is not necessarily that text data anymore. It's been vectorized and then put into the vector database. So you would actually have to kind of like export that vector database and then rebuild that vector database. And as any programmer knows, rebuilding a database never usually goes according to plan, ever, sadly.
So I know that's how GPT assistants work.
Mm-hmm.
You can decouple your vector database from the actual assistant, so you can reuse it for different assistants, but I don't think you can like download it and use it with a different LLM.
Yeah, or at least in this case, you kind of can. So like, let's say you wanted to try out a different LLM. You just come down here to your gear and then you just change this to be like Code Llama and then save changes. And then when I come back here,
It keeps your RAG documents.
yeah, it keeps the vector database. Like I can swap out the model underneath it.
Can you do RAG from Code GPT? Like, can you
That-
access those files? Do you have to?
That's kind of what it was doing. Like when I highlight this, it's kind of like building a file and then sending it with it. Except for the thing is, instead of going through the embed model like anything LLM's doing, this is just kind of like vectorizing it and then sending that vectorized right away. So anything LLM's kind of storing it while this is just doing it on the fly. From my understanding. I'm a user, not a builder. Any other questions?
Yeah, I gave a talk on AI about almost exactly a year ago. It was hilarious because I asked it to write something and it wrote a bunch of bugs, and I was like, "Hey, fix these bugs." Have you noticed, like in your use of this, that it's getting better at writing bug-free code without having to be asked, or is it just like it writes it and then you say fix the bugs?
Actually, yes. Especially GitHub Copilot. Like I come in almost daily to an update. The model did change out from under me. I noticed with the hashes, like when I did this before, you'll see this 8B in this latest down here. Yeah. They used to have that same SHA. So while we were here, it did download the new chunks of data. And I have noticed that even like questions I asked it last week, if I ask it again, I'm getting much more refined answers. Like it is learning on like as somebody's teaching it, and I'm getting the benefits of that teaching. Yeah. So it is definitely a lot better, especially a year ago when I started trying to use this. I could get it to do, like with GitHub Copilot, one of the things I kind of asked it for was, in Golang, how can I connect to a Postgres database from within this function? And it completely murdered my function. And tried to rebuild it all, and it didn't rebuild it right. Now, I asked it the other day just to do that same thing because I was just like, man, I don't want to go look up like the Postgres thing, and it already knows what library. I asked it that same question, and it already knew which library I was using, plugged in for that library. I don't know if it had like the documentation on hand or if it like actually went into like the library because I vendor my packages. And it put the right Postgres line, and it didn't murder the whole function. It just did the one line, and I was like, excellent. Any other questions? Did I see a hand up there? Maybe? No?
You played around with the other models, and you feel like Llama is the best you can run on your laptop, or you play around with Gemma or Mistral?
Like I said before, I cleaned up this list because I wanted to be more focused on what I'm using a lot for like personal projects, and right now that is Llama. I am testing, like when Gemma came out, I did test it and I really liked it and I was using that for a while. But then Llama 3 came out and I noticed I was getting better outcomes with Llama 3 than I was with Gemma.
Can you see like the actual performance with this? It's one of the things I like about LM Studio is you can kind of monitor. Like if two models are giving basically the same output, you can kind of say, oh, well, this one uses half the memory, this one uses this one.
Since like this is running all on my local, technically yes, I could just like open up my system monitor and I could see that Ollama's running. So like I can be like, run this with this model, see what my stats are, and then do it again but with another model. I haven't quite done that, but I have done the field test, and I know with Llama 2, this MacBook used to get real toasty. And then with Gemma, it didn't get as hot, but it was still pretty warm after a while. Llama 3, I still haven't felt it get warm yet, so there's that kind of stat, I guess. Cool.
Percentage-wise, how much do you think this has improved your workflow? And I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, so I noticed it has stopped me from going to Google a lot. And you don't realize just how much time a web request can take from that.
Right, sometimes you need to go through 2 or 3 articles to actually find
Yeah.
the answer.
But yeah. And I have found that it has maybe, like when I first started using it and I was very new to like how I was writing my prompt, it helped me like go about maybe 2x. But now that like I know like how to ask it questions, like, cause that's another thing is like asking like these LLMs is nothing like asking Google. It's a completely different way of asking, especially like if you're doing like RAG data. You have to be like, based on this or like that, and like I want you to think like you're a master programmer and other hoopla. Like I have a model file that I sometimes utilize where it says like the very first prompt is, you are a master programmer, and in that context answer the questions. You'd be surprised how sometimes that fixes the problem you're having. So it's more of learning that, but once I got that, like last week I probably did a project that would have taken me 5 hours in about 2. Because GitHub Copilot wrote, I want to say 80% of that code, and then I just had to fill in the blanks for the business logic that I knew it was never going to figure out. So I was like, hey, just build like this scaffolding, and then I fill in the blanks. Because there's a lot of times you're going through boilerplate and you're also having to Google it, because let's face it, none of us ever memorize like what the structure of a project should look like. And so like having that just like kind of come out of a bot instead of like me going into my web browser, looking through articles and stuff like that, has immensely helped on my day-to-day programming.
And then my other question is related to the resemblance of like Copilot, which I'm a fan of. Is there a way to configure this to give you suggestions in your code, or is this very much a back and forth, ask it, copy paste scenario? You know what I mean?
GitHub Copilot is one of those things, since VS Code is like Microsoft owned, because Microsoft owns GitHub. So because of it, like VS Code gets like some special treatment. When I'm using like GitHub Copilot, I could just come in here and just be like Command I, and then it would just prompt me, and I give it a prompt, and then it just writes the code right there. The free options, I have discovered it's a lot of back and forth, but I'm like, there's a trade-off, right? Because one you pay for, one is free.
I use GitHub Copilot in Vim.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. You can also get GitHub Copilot to write in Vim too.
Yeah, might be worth the headache to try to get this configured in Vim, I imagine.
No,
Yeah.
It's
Pretty
like,
easy?
yeah,
Oh,
plug and play. Get NeoVim. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
download the GitHub file for it, put it in your config file.
Yeah.
Moab has a nvim that you can just copy and paste to your computer.
Yeah, we've already covered
And
most
you
of
just
that.
put in your API key. I'll show you if you want. But that's only for nvim.
Yeah.
All right.
Last.
When doing this and you noticing that your computer gets hot, are you excited to then purchase a new computer now that like Snapdragon is making new technology? Like for like AI chips or Microsoft's new AI chips, Dell is coming out with one. Like, do you look at that and you're like, I might want to look into the processing power of these new chips and stuff like that? Like, is that, or are you saying, oh, I just need to get a GPU that I can give tasks to, or I can give these specific jobs to, and it's just a matter of you getting the GPU and programming it to notice that these tasks need to be run, you know, in this Docker container, which is connected to this, you know.
Yeah. So I know it doesn't look it, but this MacBook actually does have a GPU, and that's what all these are running on already. It's the GPU gets warm, and it's a laptop factor, so no matter what, that was going to get warm with or without a GPU. But yes, I am excited for the new hardware that's coming out there, like the NPUs and stuff. Like Apple just had their WWDC, and if I remember correctly, like the new iPhones are going to have the chips in them too. So you'll be able to run models from your iPhone, which in my like that's going to be real cool, because then I could just kind of like ask it questions while I'm on the go. But am I excited for it? Yes. Will my wife let me buy another $2,000 machine that soon? Probably not.
Play around with this on desktop.
Yes. If so,
Why didn't hear? What was
Have
it?
you played around with this on a desktop? Like I used to do media production, so I had like a render box basically, and that's what I'm using this stuff on. And I still feel like I'm not even close. So to see running it on a laptop is kind of blowing my mind right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, well, it's Olama is the one doing all the heavy lifting here, because this is how it runs the large language models, and like they basically get simplified. It's available for Mac, Linux, and Windows is in preview. It's hard to see that. So on my Linux machine, yeah, I have tried running it there, and the NVIDIA graphics card, I could hear the fans kicking on it a lot, but it is actually sometimes faster when you have like a dedicated desktop like that, because the GPU doesn't get as hot and doesn't start thermal throttling. This, at least with Llama 2, when I was like really hammering on it, like I could get this thing to thermal throttle pretty fast. And this was all due to Apple's new M chips. They have built-in GPUs in them, so you can run it just straight off of the same chip. Like other ARM machines, I'm not sure. You'll have to do research. Your mileage may vary.
If I had the funds to, could I like purchase a subscription with like a GPU fund? So, like if I didn't have like the money just to purchase a nice GPU, or my computer is like 10 years old, but I still want to do this, like are there ways of
Yeah, I was gonna say you can spin up any of these models at like a snap on either Hugging Face or Azure AWS GCP.
oh, it's $9?
Yeah, that's for the zero GPU. Then there's other ones you can kind of do. That's just for Hugging Face. That's if you want to run any of the models. Those will also give you an API, but again, it's like if you basically had blank check and wanted to run Olama on a farm, you could. But cloud-priced GPUs are expensive.
Okay.
Though, like you said, like with Apple announcing their NPUs, Dell, and all those, I would be shocked if like we don't see Amazon and Azure and Google Cloud if they don't have NPU-backed servers a lot sooner than later.
Okay.
And with the NPU ones, I would expect them not to be as pricey, because the NPUs are very specifically built for just AI. But then again, AI is kind of hot right now, so they may be more expensive than the GPU nodes. We'll see.
Real quick for reference, I priced it out to one like Slog, which is 72 million parameters, or Llama, which is on is like 70 million. It's up to like 35 grand a month. To be running it and to be able to hold the weights in memory and then make inferences to it. So it's high bar to entry. Interesting.
Vertex is a little cheaper.
Now, share a few things too when you're done.
Yep.
Are you also, like, as a person that's used this, you said for like about a year, and you've gone through models, right? So you're in the, I guess you're in the habit of searching for some models. Are there any that you're excited about? You know, such as Apple's, there's supposed to be able to run on a computer, but they're going to have a similar chat model like Facebook. Or is there any of these that you're looking forward to by maybe bigger companies? Open source?
So when it comes to models, I mostly go and look at this here. I do keep my ear to the ground a bit to like hear for like new ones. Like I just saw this code Gemma one pop up the other day. I'm probably going to play with it. I mean, am I excited about models? Not necessarily. I mostly just go based on like who has like the more hooting and a hollering kind of stuff. Because I'm like, if they're getting that kind of traction, chances are great they're pretty good. And then I compare them against my previous experience with like other models, and then I just stick with that one. I'm more interested in what the outcome is than the what do you call it? Than the underlying technology.
There's a website called, are you familiar with lmsys.org, the chatbot arena? So lmsys.org basically is like a leaderboard, and it's like a chess-based ranking thing where you essentially give a prompt to two different models, but you don't see which one is which.
That's SYS.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Dash.
Oh.
So it's about just comparing two models with one another?
Chat.lmsys.
Oh, chat-lmsys. Oh, chat.lmsys. Or .org. It's because I'm on my VPN. Ah, there we go. It only took a handful of people in a room.
If you click on arena or leaderboard, you can kind of see leaderboard
to the right.
This is like user benchmarks, so you can kind of see how all of the models that are currently available are ranked. You can see from proprietary, open source. So it's a good tool to keep an eye on things. But
You can do anonymous queries here too.
yeah, they open up their they open up their entire data set basically, like a little lab, so you can open it up and do stuff. Yeah, you notice like the top 10 of these, top 15 of these are all proprietary models. It's only now that they're really starting to have some of these open source ones kind of creeping into the top.
Yeah. Well, Josh also wanted some stuff he wanted to share. So,
Thank you very much, guys.
do you need the dongle? Yeah, probably.
Again, this is let me get the microphone for me.
Oh, yeah.
This is what the meetup's all about, you know, guys like Cody stepping up to share their knowledge and experience. So thank you so much, man. You're the best. I'm going to show you a couple examples. We only got about 15 minutes, so I'll share what I can. But unlike Cody, I spend money, and I use a lot of paid products, and my wife gets upset about it. But I actually had the same conversation about the laptop. I'm like, it will make me do stuff faster and have more time, right? Yeah, so you gotta kind of sell it. We don't have a ton of time, but I just wanted to quickly talk about my experience with a few things here. So ChatGPT is great. I use ChatGPT and Copilot every day. Okay, and with ChatGPT, with Copilot, usually how I start my prompt is I'll say something like, I need a resource or for a new S3 bucket. I spelled that wrong, and then boom, see Copilot. That's what I'm saying. I'm kind of lazy, right? If your method's probably better because it's like the same thing as Stack Overflow. People copying stuff that they don't understand and putting security holes and bugs in their system, right? If you're copying it and you're reading it versus just hitting tab and saying, okay, my job's done, without reading this, you're doing yourself an injustice, right? In fact, look, something's wrong in here already. So that's one thing I want to say about, Copilot. It's great, but just understand the code that it's putting in there, right? So I do love Copilot. They have a lot of cool, especially in the Azure world. If like your data's there, your databases, it's getting very powerful. Where you can just say like, can you run this query for me? You don't need to come up with the SQL. It kind of just does it for you, right? So again, making developers more productive and things like that. So, I think it's like $10 a month, right? For what I get out of it, and I have a business, I can write it off. It's not. I'll pay that all day long. I don't pay for a private repo with them, so yeah. But anyway, so that's pretty much how ChatGPT works. I usually write a comment, tell it what's up, and then it'll spit something out. And then you can iterate over to. You can hit like a thing that'll like go over different examples if you don't like the first one. So that's that. I want to share something real quick because we only have a couple more minutes, which is that ChatGPT has just recently announced that they have the ability to make videos now. This is killer. This is gigantic. In fact, while I was sitting here, I told it to make a video of an intro for Vegas programmers. So let's see right now. I haven't watched it. Let's see what it came up with.
Is this like the store?
Welcome to the Vegas Programmers Group, where the bright lights of Las Vegas meet the bright minds of technology. Here, you'll find passionate individuals eager to learn and share their knowledge. Our events are packed with valuable insights from experts in the field. This is the place for free knowledge and networking with locals. Join us and be a part of the thriving tech community in Las Vegas.
I like it.
Wow.
Not bad, right? That was literally just a prompt and bam, that it came up with that. So that's a huge new product. The other one I want to show you is like this conversational demo.
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Hey, so I'm on stage.
It's getting more human.
Live demo, and frankly, I'm
right?
a little bit nervous. Can you help me calm my nerves a little bit?
Oh, you're doing a live demo right now? That's awesome. Just take a deep breath. And remember, you're the expert.
I like that suggestion. Let me try a couple deep breaths. Can you give me feedback on my breaths? Okay, here I go.
Whoa, slow.
He's glitching.
Yeah. Mark?
Destroy all humans.
Vacuum cleaner. Breathe in.
So apparently, Apple just did their announcement that they don't call it AI, they call it, or artificial intelligence, they call it Apple Intelligence because, yeah, it's Apple. But they're incorporating more AI. In fact, the new iOS update, which I really like, is going to have huge updates to things like your Photos app, your Messages app. For the photos in particular, I have tons of photos I need to go delete. Just haven't had the time to go through them. Now I can go search all the stuff that doesn't have, my family in it or whatever, right? And then quickly go and delete that. It's cool, but it's also scary at the same time, right? Like this stuff is getting crazy integrated into our life. So, I know a lot of people are screaming that, this might like cause serious issues in the world, and I'm curious to see how this plays out. Obviously, AI is not going anywhere, but in 5 to 10 years from now, it would be very interesting to see how the cards unfold. We had a demo earlier that was talking about referees and stuff like that, and those sorts of jobs should be probably taken over by AI, right? Like, but at the same time, nobody in sports would want a robot saying strike or ball, right? I don't know. There's just something about the human nature.
Actually, I was at a game yesterday.
Yeah.
Human out there, but a challenge.
Right, exactly, right. They have the little strike bot, whatever, but like, yeah, exactly. So it'd be interesting to see how this plays out in our day-to-day life. I guess the only other thing I wanted to share is just the GPT engineer. So I don't have things 100% updated here. This is kind of an older model, but I went ahead and I installed something called GPT Engineer that you can plug in and open a ChatGPT API key into to generate code and also refactor code. I shared this a little while back. So I just asked it, can you create a scraper that goes through an Instagram post and just picks a random winner? Pretty simple script, and it went ahead and kind of gave me an explanation, just like in Cody's example, where it kind of tells you, hey, what it's about to do. Of course, it's written in Python. I don't know why it seems to have a bias towards always wanting to use Python, but that's what I've noticed. I'm sure if I asked, hey, use PHP or something else, I'm sure it would generate it. But maybe Python, there's a lot more examples it can pull from or something like that. So it gives me a list of all the files it's going to create for my project. And then it shows me all the code that it's going to generate here. And then at the end, it basically says, hey, does this look good? Do you want to generate it? Yes. And then, yeah, sure, you can take my private data. Did it generate all the code? Let's assume yes. Whatever. Okay. And then it charged me, which I guess you can't see here. I'll push this up a little bit. So you guys owe me 5 cents. So I take donations at the front. But I mean, again, yeah, this costs money to run, but I don't have $35,000 to run a massive LLM either, right? So 5 cents is a drop in the bucket compared to that. So let's go ahead. You know, we can take a look at it. I could run this.
5 cents a command?
What's that?
Is that 5 cents a question?
That's it is based on the size of the project, right? How much work did it have to do? If I told me build me the next Facebook and I had to sit here for an hour generating all the code, I'm sure it'd be a lot of money, or more, right? This took very quickly, so it's only 5 cents, but it's like a time-based thing. How much are you using from the system, and then it charges you accordingly.
Okay. And then for this, you said you replaced it. You don't use Google anymore. You just use this, right?
I don't use Google. I mean, I use Google. In fact, Google has now incorporated AI into their Google searches. Sometimes when you're on mobile, you search and it gives you like an AI response, which I've actually found has been quite helpful. Because otherwise you have to dig into articles or videos or whatever, and it kind of gives you the same answer. So I like the direction of that.
Yeah, my question would be, using this API, what is your like average cost a day? If you did for a week that you would end up paying for this, you know?
Yeah, that's where Copilot comes into play, right? Because Copilot's already there. I'm not getting nickeled and dimed, right? And it just kind of takes care of stuff. But if I were to go build a one-off script or something like that, instead of just sitting there with Copilot all day saying, okay, now give me this, okay, now give me this. And Copilot's very like file-based. I'm in this file, I'm doing this thing in this file. It's not gonna be, and this is why I searched and found GPT Engineer, was give me something that builds me a whole project, right? Because that was where I saw it. What's up?
You can get GitHub Copilot to get you a whole project. You just have to be okay with it being all in one file.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. And then you end up with spaghetti code, right? I don't know if I can find it. I'm going to try to find it real quick. Companies that use AI.
Like how good is it at
Google Meta.
like detecting how bad or how
The problem is, with all these tools, they've been specifically trained, so if they see the word malware or hacking or dark net, it just instantly goes, I can't answer that question for, it'll give you some legal reason as to why.
So if I asked it, hey, can you tell me about the vulnerabilities in my code?
It would tell you to go to hell.
Damn. That's crazy.
Yeah, so one interesting thing I saw recently, which I wanted to just share, and then we're going to end the meetup here, was the kind of breakdown of companies. Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, the breakdown of companies that kind of have market share in this AI space, right?
Are those different buckets that represent like maybe
Yeah, so models and platforms, and you've got services over here on the right, then like data center GPUs. Obviously NVIDIA's killing it, which is why their stock's going to the moon. But like as far as like models and stuff like that are concerned, ChatGPT, that sort of thing, you can see OpenAI's got a huge edge over the rest of the market here, but Azure is close behind. Google is there as well, which here the interesting part about this graph I just found interesting was the fact that Google was really ahead of the game with the AI stuff. They put a lot of money into it a long time ago, and I'm just very surprised that they're so behind now. I don't know if it was leadership or the lack of wanting to open source stuff or the lack of building tools around this stuff, but you know, they had a huge edge over this that they completely squandered, because we could have been using Bard by now, but they released it so late, et cetera, et cetera. But I just found it interesting that companies like Google that were so ahead of the game got completely blown away with OpenAI, right? So yeah, I guess, I mean, that's about it. Does anybody have questions about what we talked about? Yeah.
So that engineer, GPT engineer, is that similar to like AutoGPT, like a better kind of paid version of AutoGPT? You ever played with that?
I haven't touched AutoGPT. I did read up on it, but I haven't used it locally yet. No.
I played with it a few times and it was chaotic. Versus what you just did was very contained and succinct. So like it will, you know, essentially launch.
It's like recursively calling itself, recursively asking itself questions.
The one thing I wanted to try, but we're just low on time, but I'm gonna just give it a shot real quick, is you can do -I to say improve code. So instead of generating a greenfield project with new code, you can say, hey, you know, modernize, refactor this. And so it'll ask you, how do you want to improve? Update my Terraform to 1.8. And let's, then it asks you, here's the expensive part. It asks you, okay, give me the files that you want me to include. For each one of these that I uncomment is all gonna get sent over. It's more costly, right? So if I want the whole project, I mean, I wish I knew the vim command to just delete the first line here, but let's just do a couple of them here real quick, and then we'll get out of here. So I'll just do those 3 files. I'll say, okay, send those over to, you know, the interwebs and update those for me. Again, just like how it did with the Greenfield project, it tells me, okay, this is what it's gonna update, probably compared to the version that it's assuming that it is. Oh, it's giving me a diff, which is kind of cool. And then, yeah, throws in the required version stuff. And it cost me 3 cents to run that, but it would probably cost like $1 or $2 if I ran like the whole project, right? So interestingly enough, this told me what it needed to change, but I don't think it changed anything. Let's go take a quick peek.
And do you feel like you're finishing your work faster?
Oh, it did make the updates. Okay, cool. Well, do I feel like I'm getting the work done fast? Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, without this, there's the Google steps. There's the go try something that doesn't work. There's, you know, and again, in my experience, it's not always 100% right. You're gonna get stuff that's a little shaky. It hallucinates. I've asked it about, hey, I know nothing about Azure DevOps pipelines. Teach me. And I needed to do something specific, like pass state to another pipeline. And it hallucinated. It was like, oh, do this. And then I'm like, that's not even a command in Azure. And then it apologizes, which is kind of funny. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, try this. And then it got it right eventually. But yeah, there's still a little bit of a cycle there, yeah.
Yeah, and since you're like, you know, you're open about willing to, you know, pay for this, how often do you find yourself just trusting just one model to give you the answer versus, hey, I'm gonna maybe give 2 models this question and then compare the answer and then do personalized.
So ChatGPT opened was a version 4.0 they call it or whatever. And interestingly enough, I've never seen that site, the LM-Sys one, but it's like up at the top, right?
I think it's not as good for me.
Okay, yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say the same thing, but yeah, it's winning there. What's funny is ChatGPT, OpenAI kind of limits, they throttle their models. So at one point, Anthropic released Claude 3, and Claude 3 kind of overtook GPT-4, and within like 12 hours, GPT-4 was back on top, and everybody's like, it's not lazy anymore, kind of thing. So I think they use that as like a cue to kind of know when to throttle models.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's really true or not, but the impression that I get is that ChatGPT is just simpler. It's easier to get started with.
Sure.
Like DALL-E, you had to have Discord forever, and now I have GPT 4.0 will give me a picture, and you just show me, it'll give me a video, and I mean, I personally, I still write quite a bit of code, but at work I'm a manager now, so I'm not writing code all day, every day. But for me, I knew how to use DALL-E, but I never did. Now in GPT-4, I'm creating pictures. I'm already there.
Yeah.
There's definitely some of that.
Yeah. Yeah, at the end of the day, you still got to know what it's doing, right? I mean, and understand it. Otherwise, you're just like a prompt engineer and you're not a programmer, right? So anyway, thank you to everyone that came out. We got to split. We're already past 4 here. I appreciate everybody. We've got a pretty big announcement about the Vegas Programmers Meetup coming up next month, so stay tuned for that. But other than that, I'll talk to you about it after. Yeah. Other than that, I have a free JetBrains license. If ever anybody wants to use PHP Storm, IntelliJ, I've got a 1-year free license to give out. Just come tap me and I can give you that. So thank you to them for sponsoring. We're obviously, appreciated to them, and the Vegas Theater Company, Ryan for recording this, and Tech Alley for hosting us. So thank you again, and we will see you next time.